Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary? Terror in Whitechapel. Jack glanced up at the huge blood moon in the nighttime sky. Thankfully, there was plenty of cloud cover. Otherwise, his modus operandi of hiding in the shadows would prove impossible. He slunk through the alleyways, quiet as a church mouse, sly as a fox. Whitechapel smelled as bad as you might imagine, and the dark corners where the woman waited for gentlemen to pay for some alone time were no exception. Jack stepped over a pile of rotting rat corpses. Had London learned nothing after the Black Death, he thought. He was careful to keep hidden for now, dressed to blend into the darkness, but these women were on high alert and quick to spook. The newspapers and the rumor mills were busy. Talk of a serial killer preying on women meant only the most hardened and desperate were still flaunting their wares, others too afraid to become the next victim of the Ripper. There was not an abundance of peelers out at that time. Perhaps one uninformed officer who'd drawn the short straw, but members of the public were also taking extra care to look over their shoulder, especially upon seeing a gentleman in these unsavory parts so late at night. Although they wouldn't know he was wealthy and born of privilege, the leathery apron, covered in bodily fluids, was a giveaway. And there she was, his next target. He shivered with anticipation. There was a public house not too far from where she was loitering, in the hope that a chap who had drunk too much ale would take a fancy and offer her the penny she needed to rest easy in the local boarding house. She smiled a toothless grin and hitched her skirt a little higher, showcasing her grubby ankles. Jack could smell her from his hiding place in the shadows. 'Twas a pity the boarding house didn't also provide a bath. Still, once the majority of the patrons from the public house had stumbled home, Jack deemed it time. He crept out of the shadows, the clouds now amply covering the moon so that it was exceptionally dark. He slid over to the woman who was all too eager to join him in the alleyway. The lure of an actual bed, although it was shared and likely full of fleas overcoming any sense of danger. She followed him willfully to the dark corner, and he immediately reached into the front pocket of the apron, grabbing a hold of the cutthroat razor, and in one fluid and well-practiced motion, doing just that. The blade sliced her neck as if it were an onion, and she gasped in shock, trying to stem the flow of blood with her hands as he dealt the next blow, a punch to her gut that brought her to the ground. Jack reached down and tore at her dress. He believed her to still be alive as he made the first few incisions, then went to work. Whether she died of shock, pain, massive blood loss, or most likely all three, he didn't care. He stood up the open cavity of her body, steaming and stinking in the air. He could already see interested movement around her, vermin sniffing about, bold enough to breach the underground tunnels for fresh meat. Jack whistled as he left the park, his latest trophy inside the pocket of the apron, along with the razor. There was no one around, but even if there had been, they wouldn't question a butcher on his way to the slaughterhouse. He stashed his tools in plain sight and made his way stealthily back to the sort of neighborhood where everyone would be fast asleep in the four-poster beds, sleeping soundly between silk sheets. He crept in through the servant quarters, and even they were not yet awake. He crawled into his own comfortable bed chambers and smiled, wondering how long it would be until the body was discovered. He could see the headline on the evening paper already. Jack the Ripper strikes again.